previous presidents have had a career in politics, President Donald Trump went from a business tycoon who lived by his own rules to the leader of the free world and having to follow someone else's rules. If there was anyone who has had a more dramatic change in living life, one could argue that it's dear old Donald. Here are 10 ways Trump's life changed after becoming president. Feeling like you need to make a change in your life? If you haven't subscribed, that's a small change that can make a big impact. Just click on that red subscribe button and that little gray bell to turn on the notifications. That way you won't miss a moment on our channel. Traveling. Before becoming president, Donald Trump could get on his private plane and go wherever he wanted. If he felt like going to Europe, it was done. If he wanted to go to one of his vacation homes, that wasn't an issue. Of course, he had a team of his own private security guards, but they were people who worked under him. That meant that Trump could still go wherever he pleased without having to answer to anyone. However, after becoming president, Trump has to get security clearance to travel. Plus, he has to have the Secret Service with him at all times. There was even debate on whether Trump would still be able to use his private plane because it wasn't equipped with all of the security features that Air Force One had. It actually became a heated discussion since Trump Force One had impressive luxury features, but Air Force One possessed not only safety features, but needs to host meetings while thousands of feet in the air. What made the debate even more intense was the fact that Trump was overall unimpressed with Air Force One, which is a good way to rile up his opposers. Despite arguments, it looks like Trump is using Air Force One. Social life. Since he added the title of president to his name, Trump doesn't have much time to have a social life. Trump had to relocate away from New York City, meaning that he won't be able to see his friends and colleagues on a regular basis like he used to. Plus, when you're president, you tend to see and deal with the same people every day, and they become your friends, so to speak. But there isn't much variety in human interaction unless you're conducting important meetings. However, that's in a professional environment and not really in a relaxed context where you can loosen your tie. It seems that if President Trump wants to have any variety in his social life, he needs to make surprise visits to tourists at the White House, or even entertain the kids in his son Barron's class. These changes happened not just because he became the president, but he might have to cut some ties with his other celebrity friends during his campaign. For example, did you know the Trumps and the Clintons were good friends? Bill and Hillary even went to Melania and Donald's wedding. Needless to say, that friendship might not be as strong anymore after Donald and Hillary ran against each other. Family finances. Before he became president, Trump went on vacations and such, and it was paid for out of his own pocket. Since being sworn in, Trump has taken a few vacations with his family to his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida, with Secret Service approval. And they aren't cheap. According to Forbes, Trump's family vacations in a month cost more than the Obama family's trips for a whole year. Granted, there could be something there where Trump is helping to pay for it, but so far it looks like it's the taxpayers paying for those trips. Given that different members of the Trump family like Ivanka, Eric, and Donald Jr. have had their roles change since dear old dad became president, they might all be feeling the need for some vacation time. Eric and Donald Jr. have taken over the family business for now while he's president, but Ivanka is staying close to her dad, and her husband, Jared Kushner, is a senior advisor to the White House. We obviously know that Trump's life changed, but we sometimes forget how much a family's life can change when one of its members becomes one of the most important people in the world. Melania stayed in NYC until Barron finished school for the year, and it seems that she tried to keep his life as normal as possible before relocating to the White House. Social media. Let's get the most obvious one out of the way. For the past few years, we've all watched Donald Trump's Twitter account, especially during the late nights. Some of the most controversial statements from him have come from his tweeting. We've all done it. When we're on social media, we have the security blanket of the computer screen, which gives us that liberating feeling that lets us say whatever we want. How many times have we tweeted and posted while under the influence? We're not saying Trump was drinking anything, but his tweets made for some pretty entertaining topics of discussion. In fact, so many people kept begging his campaign people to take his Twitter account away until the election was over. Now that he's president, Trump can't tweet as freely as he used to, because he now represents the United States. That doesn't seem to stop him from making a few slips every now and then, especially when talking about other countries. But the world has noticed a change in his Twitter account since the election, and the change seems to be for the better where public relations are concerned. Kind of. How is Trump feeling about it? He might feel a bit stifled, but until his term is over, he might need to resort to a diary. Business dealings. Before he was sworn in as president, Trump resigned from his business and handed over all the company dealings to his sons, Eric and Donald Jr. Trump's daughter Ivanka was also supposed to step in, but Since then, she decided to work more closely with her father and become an official government employee. But keep in mind that Trump built his wealth and empire on his business. He has always been known as a businessman, and that's a major part of his identity. Before becoming president, he had to strip himself from that identity and take on a political role. He can't be involved in any way with his business because otherwise that will be a conflict of interest. Granted, there is still speculation that Trump and even Ivanka still have their hands in the company, which has raised some speculation that Trump may be acting in the interest of growing his business. But in a way, Trump handed his baby over to his sons, and like the nosy parent that constantly calls the babysitter, Trump may be trying to constantly check in and make sure his business is doing well. Once his term as president is over, he still has a company to go back to. So far, you've learned about 5 ways that Trump's life has changed. Let's take a break and have a quiz. Here's your question. Between movies and television, how many cameo appearances has President Trump made in his lifetime? We'll reveal the answer at the end of this video. The media. Needless to say, Trump's relationship with the media isn't a great one, and has taken on quite a tumultuous dynamic in 2017 alone. But it wasn't always like that. In fact, it seemed that during the 80s and 90s, the media and the rest of the entertainment industry was fascinated by Trump. You could even say that the media admired him for a period of time. He was rich and successful, and he made a ton of cameos in television shows and movies. In those cameos, he always played himself, which showed just how powerful he was. But after he announced his intention to run for the Republican nomination for President of the United States, it seems that the media took a different approach to how they televised Trump. Now, Trump has done and said his share of things that got him into hot water without any spinning by the media. However, Trump has also shown some great disdain towards the media and coined the idea of fake news, which many of his followers greatly believe. Now, when the media portrays Trump, it isn't in a favorable light, which is a huge change from 30 to 40 years ago when the media seemed to worship him. Lack of privacy. Being president means that you need to be comfortable not only having all of your business public, but also the business of your family and friends. Before becoming president, Donald Trump could keep certain details of his life fairly private. Regardless of whether or not he was a public figure, he still maintained a certain level of privacy when it came to his personal life and even his business dealings. But as soon as he ran for president, people wanted to know every detail of his life that wasn't already public. This included religious practices, his tax returns, and even the integrity of his employees. If you were associated with the Trump brand, then the world wanted to know everything about you despite your yearning to keep certain things private. From what he's eating for each meal to his schedule for foreign affairs, you can find all that information out with a simple search on Google. His trip to Saudi Arabia, the schedule is released. Basically, you can know where Trump is at almost any minute of the day thanks to government-sanctioned releases of his schedule. Trump can still have a say in what's released about his private life, but it's not nearly as much say as he once had when he was just a businessman. Staff. While Donald Trump was on The Apprentice, his iconic catchphrase became, "You fired." He was both revered and feared on the show, as it went through different inceptions like The Celebrity Apprentice. But Trump can't run the White House like the Trump Organization. While running his own empire, Trump could easily hire and fire people at his own discretion. He hired people based on what they could do for his company. If something went wrong or disaster struck, it was all kept within the Trump Organization. But once you become a government official, selecting your staff becomes a much bigger deal because these are the people who are supposed to help make the country a better place. If bad policy happens or there's a scandal, it directly reflects on Trump's administration. Or worse, it can affect the American people, if not the world. In other words, the stakes are high when it comes to Trump picking his staff. The consequences are much greater from selecting the wrong person. Plus, should a situation happen where an investigation needs to be conducted, it's much more serious in the White House than just within company boundaries. While Trump may be president, he isn't completely in charge and has to answer to a different authority should something go wrong with his staff. Loose lips. When you're in charge of your own company, you can reveal information as you see fit. Even if the information is sensitive, usually you can gauge whether or not to share this information based on your own rapport with the other person. Sometimes circumstances require you to reveal sensitive information in a discreet manner, which is usually okay thanks to non-disclosure agreements. But when you're the president of the United States, you can't have loose lips that will flap to anyone who will listen. This is why Trump got himself into some trouble in May 2017 after he was accused of leaking sensitive and highly classified information to a Russian foreign minister and ambassador. Different information was being revealed by White House staff and Trump as to why the incident happened. The White House said it was because Trump hadn't been briefed on the information and didn't know it was classified, while Trump said he had the authority to leak the information. It was truly a learning experience for President Trump as he realized that he has to get permission to reveal even the slightest bit of information. This is rather different from his life before becoming president, since he could make those decisions himself without having to answer to anyone else. Workload. Finally, probably one of the biggest ways that Trump's life changed after becoming president is his workload. In an interview with Reuters, he mentioned that he missed his old life and that being president was a lot harder than he thought. Given that he used to run a billion-dollar business, which that in itself isn't easy, it's a big deal for Trump to even admit that he might have bitten off more than he could chew. His workload is completely full with meetings, briefings, media appearances, and other presidential duties that makes him one of the busiest men in the world. When he was running his own business, he had some flexibility in his daily life. But now that Trump is president, he has to answer to not only the Senate and the House of Representatives, but also the American people. Since Trump admitted that the job is harder than he originally thought, and his yearnings for his old life, that might be a reason he's taken so many vacations in his first 100 days in office. Since he didn't have any previous political experience, his first day in office probably shocked him. He still has a lot of learning to do, and he's probably reflecting on the recent changes in his life quite a lot. Between movies and television, how many cameo appearances has President Trump made in his lifetime? With 10 movie cameos and 12 TV cameos, that rounds the total out to 22. His first television appearance was in a 1985 episode of The Jeffersons, and his movie appearance was in a 1989 film called Ghosts Can't Do It, for which he won a Razzie for the Worst Supporting Actor. Yikes. If you enjoyed this video or have something to say about it, tell us in the comments. We always love hearing from you, our viewers. If you're in the mood for more, check out these other videos on our channel. Before we go, take a moment to subscribe to our channel as well as click on the gray bell to turn on those notifications. See you next time. Bye-bye.